Hi, buddy. I'm Matt.
And I'm Steve.
And this is Marvel Reread Club.
I don't know. Why don't you start, Matt? I don't know what to say.
Hi, Steve. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. We just got back from New York City, where we saw my daughter in the play that she was in as part of her BFA program in acting. And she was fantastic. And that is not just our opinion. During the second night that we saw the show, our daughter played a sheep. So that sounds like being second lobster in the school nativity play. But
Yes.
this is actually a substantial role. And
She played a substantial sheep.
she played a very substantial sheep. That is correct. You can either think of her as a hallucination that Marie Antoinette is having through periods in her life, or you can think of it as sort of a magic realist play. One way or the other, my daughter played a sheep. And during the intermission, the second time we saw the show, the woman who was standing directly in front of us stood up to stretch and sort of turned around as she was doing so. And she just said, "That sheep needs to go straight to Broadway." I thought that she had had a conversation with Amy earlier and knew that we were her parents. And so I said, "Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that." And she says, "Oh, wait, do you know the sheep?" So she did not know. That was just the first thing that came to her mind that she wanted to say out loud after seeing the first act of the show was that sheep needs to go straight to Broadway.
That is great.
That is great. Yes. And one of the things I've been thinking about also recently is the fact that so many people are afraid that so many different careers are going to cease to exist because of AI and other such things. But one thing that AI cannot replace anytime soon is live performance. So we're still riding high on doing that.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're doing all well here. I forget what I reported last time we were here, but my son got his first ever hat trick in soccer. He scored 3 goals in a game and also got a hat trick of assists in the same game. He's doing great. My daughter, we finally find out, I may have mentioned before on this podcast that she was cast Macbeth, but she was cast as Lady Banquo, which is odd because there is no Lady Banquo. We found out that they have eliminated Fleance, Banquo's son, and given all those lines to a newly created character, Lady Banquo, Banquo's wife. So she's got a substantial enough part.
Nice.
So both of my kids are doing very well, and I'm doing all right. I'm thinking about taking on a second night of trivia. It looks like I'm going to have to take on a second night of trivia. So I'm going to be doing a lot of bar trivia hosting.
All right.
Except for, but the other one isn't a bar. It's a pizza place that has no liquor license. So we're going to do dead sober bar trivia, which is, I don't know if that works.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, it's sort of hard to understand how non-fast food restaurants that don't offer alcohol stay open, since usually drinks and fries are where restaurants make all their money. So, if you just have soft drinks, usually you need to have a lot more fries. And so that's where fast food restaurants come in. But yeah, I sort of wonder how those restaurants make it.
Yeah. I don't know. I have no idea how this place is gonna last, but they want to do trivia and my bosses want them to want to do it, so we're gonna go ahead and do it. And right. Even though I'm reluctant to add a second night of dead sober bar trivia, but oh well.
Right.
So should we go ahead and do the middle third of the books of November 1968?
Yes, let's do so. I believe that we're going to be doing Fantastic Four number 80, Captain Marvel number 7, Submariner number 7, and Marvel Superheroes number 17, which will be a surprise for folks what that contains when we get to it in this episode.
Yes, indeed. A shockingly good issue, I would say. So we will see that. But first, let's go ahead and do Fantastic Four number 80. Should I do it or should you do it?
I'll go ahead and do Fantastic Four. Why not?
Okay.
Fantastic Four number 80, guest starring Wyatt Wingfoot. On the cover, we have the Fantastic Four and Wyatt Wingfoot on some kind of military-looking vehicles charging towards a big Kirby, giant, strange monster-looking thing. Well, monster is not really the right word. He's referred to as as a totem when we get inside. So he looks like he is carved out of something. All right. So desperately, the Fantastic Four must go where treads the living totem. Welcome to the grandeur that is Marvel, proudly produced by Stan the Man Lee and Jack King Kirby. Embellishment Joe Sinnott, lettering Sam Rosen. So we open with the Thing lazing around reading a letter while Johnny is trying to clean up because, Sue isn't around, and she, in addition to being a superhero, also is the housekeeper. So,
Of course.
of course. But hey, at least the bachelors are making a token effort to clean up while they're gone, and not just leaving it all to Crystal, who is also helping.
As opposed to the living totem, who is making a totem effort.
Okay. So the letter that Thing is reading is from Wyatt Wingfoot, and Johnny says, "From Wyatt, why didn't you say so?" And I find it hard to read this next line out loud, but I'm going to go ahead and do it. What's that roving, red-skinned mass of muscles up to now?
Yeah.
To which I say, means well and aged well do not necessarily go together.
Yeah. So this brings us to the big question of, is Johnny still in college? Because Johnny being in college used to be a big part of this book with his college roommate, Wyatt Wingfoot. And then it just got dropped. Once Crystal moved in, then that was it. And we just have not seen Wyatt Wingfoot for a good 25 issues at this point, maybe 20 issues. We haven't seen him. We don't know if they're still going to college together. And that's still not clear from this issue.
Yeah, I get the feeling that Johnny has just dropped out.
Yeah.
Whether or not Wyatt is still in college, I don't know. But I think that Johnny just had bigger fish to fry than going and getting a college education.
Yeah.
What was saving the universe at regular intervals.
Wyatt is back on the reservation for the moment, but it's unclear if he's permanently there.
Right. So the letter is saying that there's trouble on the reservation, and there's some stuff about evil spirits and a living totem, and Johnny's not sure what to make of this, but thinks, maybe we need to head on out there and see if we can help out with whatever the problem is. Reed walks in and he's like, "Why don't I join you?" And they're like, "Hey, aren't you about to have a baby? Or shouldn't you be there?" And he's like, "The doctor suggested I stop haunting the hospital," to use his own words. So basically they've told him, get out of here. You're starting to bug everybody. So Thing is super happy to hear that they're getting the band back together and heading out west to do this. He starts waltzing around and grabbing Johnny as he does so. So we see that Wyatt still has what's the thing called? The gyro cruiser that was given to them by Black Panther. So that is now in Wyatt's possession, and he is using it to get around the rougher parts of the reservation. He's trying to figure out what's going on with this living totem thing.
We should be clear. We're talking about actual rougher parts of the reservation, meaning like rocky.
Yes.
Not like rough in terms of, crime ridden or anything like that.
Right. Not in terms of the dodgy neighborhood or something like that. No, this is actual rough terrain. So anyway, apparently the elders are thinking that this old, I guess you might call it a god of their people, this living totem is returning. And Wyatt is skeptical of all of this, and he's trying to figure out what's really going on, and that's why he's out here in the gyro cruiser. And then he ends up coming across Tomazuma, the totem who walks. And he says, "My sleep of ages is now ended. Those who created me must die. So speaks Tomazuma." So he is supposedly turning on his people. So the Fantastic Four fly out west in the pogo plane. Johnny jumps out of the plane and is flying around. The Native Americans on the reservation are shooting at him with some sci-fi guns here. They think that he is a fire demon of some sort as part of the thing that they are dealing with, the supernatural stuff that they're dealing with. But then he comes down and he's like, "No, I'm Johnny Torch, how you doing?" And here's the rest of the Fantastic Three behind me.
Yeah. Page 2 on panel 8 looks kind of like 80s Kirby with the craggy faces of the elder people in the tribe and the heaviness of the inks and the way the sci-fi gun is in front of the person's face. I don't know. It all kind of feels like 80s Kirby to me. The rest of the issue doesn't.
I can see that a little bit, but it's not quite as stylized as 80s Kirby is. But yeah, I can see some of that coming in there. Mm-hmm. So Wyatt Wingfoot, meanwhile, is trying to stop Tomazuma on his own and is not doing a very good job of it. He is able to make it back to the gyro cruiser barely by the skin of his teeth and get inside of it to try and escape to warn his people. We get a scene of the Fantastic Three sitting with the chief of the tribe, Silent Fox, who is, I believe, Wyatt's grandfather. They're, of course, sitting around in what we used to call Indian style, because, of course, because they're on a reservation. I believe these days when kids sit down that way in school, it's called crisscross applesauce.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they're talking, and then there's a huge explosion on the horizon. And they're saying, oh, that looks like an oil field has just exploded. Johnny speeds up ahead and finds that that's indeed exactly what happened. Meanwhile, I forget at what point in the story this comes up, but it comes up that this tribe is incredibly wealthy because of the oil that they are sitting on top of. Now, the idea that this wouldn't, well, we'll get to that in a minute.
But they point out that a Red Star Oil Company wants to own the land, and Reed points out that they're controlled from behind the Iron Curtain. So I would think that during the middle of the Cold War, that behind the Iron Curtain oil companies, which right there seems a little strange, behind the Iron Curtain oil companies wouldn't be able to buy up land in Oklahoma or wherever this is, but apparently they can, and they want to. And spoiler alert, that's why they've sent an evil version of the tribe's own living totem to destroy their oil fields. This strikes me as a very bizarre plot turn, but okay.
Yeah, it does. And it seems unlikely to me that an Indian tribe that has tons of oil under the reservation would be allowed to stay there and still make money off of that. That just seems like something that seems unlikely to me, that they probably would, that what's going on here with the Red Star Oil Company would probably be done by Chevron or Exxon or Texaco or whatnot, and they would not be able to do what they've done.
Did you see the movie Killers of the Flower Moon?
I did not, but I know it's basically about that.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. So Tomazuma is there at the exploding oil field, and the Fantastic Four engage in combat. We get a fantastic "it's clobbering time" on page 14, which is tons of fun. More combat. At one point, the pogo plane is crashed as part of this. Wyatt reports back to his grandfather, the chief. He says, "The living totem lives. I've seen it. I have felt its power, but it is not our protector. It seeks to destroy us." Silent Fox, his grandfather, then says, "You must not speak such words, my son. We must never lose faith in the mighty Tomazuma." And then Wyatt's like, this isn't Tomazuma. Tomazuma's a legend. There is no Tomazuma. This is an evil machine built by some deadly enemy. So then Silent Fox recognizes this must be the Red Star Oil Company and calls somebody in Washington, D.C. on some kind of high-tech transceiver to warn them. And then they get in all this sort of military vehicles that they've bought with their untold riches to go and fight this fake Tomazuma. We get the Native Americans in their high-tech dune buggies doing a whole circle around Tomazuma, shooting at him in what I'm guessing is supposed to echo scenes in old westerns of the Indians surrounding and riding around.
Circled wagons.
Yes, exactly. So I think this is supposed to echo that sort of thing. But they're saying death to the false Tomazuma, but everything they're doing is not having much of an effect, and they're losing the battle. Mr. Fantastic says to Wyatt, "Do you have a portable bazooka within reach?" He's like, "Yeah, I got one right here in the back of my buggy." It's like, okay, good. Do what I tell you. And then Mr. Fantastic balls himself up into the size of a baseball, and he makes it clear that he can't do this long. This is an incredible strain, but he's like, okay, shoot me out of your bazooka and shoot it right into Tomazuma's mouth. So he does that, and it gets Mr. Fantastic inside. He's able to...
Mr. Fantastic at this point is compressed into the size of a grapefruit, but he's still talking, and you can just imagine what it sounds like. He's like, "No, touch me right at the opening beneath the totem's eyes. Take the most careful aim, for if you should miss." And then Wyatt Wingfoot just says, "Wyatt Wingfoot will not miss." Because, of course, he was a great football player who was great at making precision passes. And so he's therefore able to shoot a bazooka with a balled up Reed Richards right into Totezuma's mouth, or whatever his name is.
Yes. So Reed is able to destroy the Tomazuma robot from inside. In the end, Silent Fox says the totem that walks still lives. It did not fail us. And in the final panel, we see a ghostly image of what is presumably the real Tomazuma that they worship walking off into the distance as a cloud formation. So, yeah, it's a fun issue. There are lots of the cultural tropes in here have not aged very well, but it's a fun issue if you take that with a grain of salt.
Yep. It has an age well, and it's sort of a complex story here because it's like, wait, is Tomazuma their friend or their enemy? And so he says at the end, Tomazuma was here ready to destroy the monster, but thanks to you, he was not needed. So, I thought it might be the sort of thing where it's like, oh, who did this? Oh, it must have been Tomazuma, but Tomazuma doesn't actually act in any way. He's just still up in the clouds this whole time. So it's sort of a complex switcheroo story here. But it's just beautifully, except for a couple of panels that seemed a little craggy for me, it's still beautifully illustrated by Kirby and Sinnott. Absolutely gorgeous inks throughout. Lots of good clobbering time, lots of good fighting. And it's great to see Wyatt Wingfoot back. I liked him as a character. I wish that they would explain what the current status quo is, which they are very much not explaining. But, I'm happy to see him however we can.
Yeah, I've always been a fan of Wyatt Wingfoot. All right. So that is Fantastic Four number 80. Shall we move on to...
Just a second. Let me check my notes on Fantastic Four number 80.
That's right. I guess I didn't really look at my notes either, did I?
Yeah. A couple more notes. Sue has been in the hospital for a long time. She's been in the hospital for, it feels like, about 7 or 8 issues or something. But this is her last issue in the hospital because next issue is going to be Fantastic Four Annual number 6, which we are going to do 2 episodes from now. But she has been in the hospital for a long time. And then she's still not going to come back because she's going to go on maternity leave as soon as she's done having her kid. So we're going to have even more time with that too, which is a shame. I miss her.
Yes. And presumably the reason she's been in the hospital this long pre-birth is because of complications due to, cosmic ray fueled issues with the pregnancy.
Well, also, it seems like they're starting to decompress. She announced she was pregnant in last year's annual, but I feel like there's more than a year between annuals. I feel like there's like 15 issues between annuals that she's been pregnant now. And I think they're starting to realize, especially if we're going to have a kid, then we're going to have to slow way down in terms of the amount of time that's passing between issues. Or speed way up, I guess, would be, I forget. I don't know how you would say that, but
right.
They're starting to realize that they'd better start covering time in a slower fashion. So that seems to be what's going on here, unless she's having a 15-month pregnancy.
I've heard it said before that the Marvel Universe progressed in real time until the birth of Franklin. And, maybe it was during the pregnancy of Franklin that time started to get wonky here.
Yeah.
So, yes, are we doing, which of the 3 books are we doing next? Which one you want to do? I had Captain Marvel up next, but you can pawn that one off on me if you want to.
Okay, I can do Captain Marvel. It's fine. The terrible Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel, The Coming of Quasimodo, Captain Marvel number 7. This is a fairly bad cover of Captain Marvel reaching out towards Quasimodo, who is shooting him with his one eye. Laser beam coming out of his one eye with a lot of heck tech in the background. Captain Marvel, The Merciless Kree Command, Die Town Die, another sizzling interstellar saga produced by Speed of Light Stan Lee, written by Supernova Arnold Drake, penciled by Fourth Dimensional Don Heck, inked by Solar Swinger John Tartaglione, lettered by Down to Earth Sam Rosen. Captain Marvel is in a machine that is causing him pain, the Truth Chair, an experience not without discomfort, where he is being interrogated by Jan Rog back up on his ship. And once again, they are FaceTiming for like the 4th time in this book with Ronan the Accuser. And Yanrog is yet again accusing Captain Marvel of not doing his best to destroy the Earth, which he is not. Yanrog is correct. And he is FaceTiming with Ronan the Accuser. You would think eventually Ronan the Accuser might want to show up for one of these trials, but no, he's always content to just stay back in the Kree Empire and FaceTime these things. But Yanrog is making a little more headway than he usually does in terms of going like, look, Captain Marvel is clearly not trying to destroy the Earth. Why can't you see it back at the home base? So they come up with a new plan. Ronan is like, Yanrog may have a point here. You have to destroy at least one Earth city. You have to kill off everybody in at least one Earth city. And then we'll let you continue to do things your way once you've done that. And Captain Marvel's like, okay, I'll do it. And then it's thinking like, how am I going to get out of this? I don't want to destroy Earth cities. I kind of like the Earthlings. He checks in with his beloved Una briefly. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Carol Danvers is investigating where she saw the UFO land not that long ago.
Here on page 5 where that's happening, page 5, panel 2, what do you notice about the proportions of Carol Danvers there?
I don't know. They look okay to me.
Really? Or the arm just looks incredibly tiny in comparison to the face to me.
I guess so.
Okay, never mind then. Okay. Go on.
She is suspicious. She is investigating where the UFO lands when she saw Yanrog land last issue. So then Yanrog decides, okay, I'm going to kill her. Captain Marvel has to go whole town. I'm going to at least kill this one girl who is suspicious of us, which again, not actually the worst idea. But Captain Marvel, of course, swoops down and saves her. And then after he saves her, he, of course, gaslights her. And is constantly going like, no, you're not detecting any evidence of aliens. We don't know what you're talking about. And she's like, but let me believe the evidence of my own eyes. And he's like, no, I don't know what, no way. We cut to the bad guy, Quasimodo, the living computer, who has shown up a lot in Marvel Comics since he first showed up. And I guess he first showed up as what's the word I'm looking for? A non-moving computer back in Fantastic Four Annual number 4. And then he first got his body in Fantastic Four Annual number 5. And since then, he's just been traipsing all over the Marvel Universe. We recently saw him in X-Men. Well, now he is here in Captain Marvel. And he has a whole plan. He attacks an RE base and attracts the attention of Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel gets in and tries to attack him. But then this whole issue is sort of like a joke punchline where it's like, I promised to destroy an Earth city. I don't want to. What am I going to do? And then Quasimodo takes over a sort of historical Williamsburg type situation where there's a town, although the town has been set up like, I guess, sort of like the gay 90s, sort of.
That's exactly what they say. Yes, they say that welcome to the gay 90s, yes. Which, once again, but I got the impression, I guess was Disney World being currently built at this point in time? Because I got the feeling this was supposed to be a Disney World animatronic, Main Street kind of deal. Yeah, and I guess this book does take place in Florida, so that would make sense. But I'm not sure when Disney World opened up. I don't think Disney World opened until 71, but okay. I was wondering whether or not it was being actively constructed and that people would be like, oh, yeah, Disney's having a thing in Florida now. Well, somebody is, because Captain Marvel finds the city, and then you get sort of the punchline to the joke where he's like, oh, if I have to destroy a city full of people, I'll destroy a city full of these people, these robot people, these animatronic people, and I'll show my bosses, see, here's the nerve gas you wanted me to use. Here is the town square full of dead people. I did it. Yanrog's like, oh man, he did it. And, I can't believe it. Then Una now at this point is convinced that Captain Marvel is falling in love with Carol Danvers, and she is crying about that. So then Captain Marvel flies back to his ship, says how clever I have learned to be in this role of double deceit, false hero to the alien planet called Earth, and counterfeit crusader to my own people. How much longer can I run this twin path of jeopardy before I fall? Indeed, Captain Marvel, you got away with quite a trick in this issue. You pulled off a very clever solution to a very hard problem. I wouldn't say very clever, a nutty, it's somewhere between clever and nutty. Half clever, half nutty solution to this very difficult problem. You realize I lied it over. I just skipped right over to the point where I said what Quasimodo's plan was because I don't remember it because I read this issue a while ago. Basically, Quasimodo can now that he has gotten access to essentially the kind of proto-internet here, he then feeds off of computer energy and is now able to control all technology. just anything that is mechanical or electronic, he can now make do his bidding. So there's one point when a soldier is pointing a rifle at him, and Quasimodo is able to make that rifle fly out of his hands and point itself at the soldier.
Yes.
Just,
because that's how it works. That's what the internet can do, right?
Right. And now guns can defy gravity and fly around on their own.
Yeah.
No, the art in this issue, I mean, my days as a Don Heck apologist are done.
Yes.
And I sometimes can come to the defense of John Tartaglione to some extent, but boy, howdy, man, is it just atrocious.
I say in my notes, Heck and Tartaglione really bring out the worst in each other. Art looks terrible.
Yes, 100%. Look at page 6, that final panel in the bottom right-hand corner. Look at the action lines that are coming out of that explosion.
Yes.
That is just, I mean, now I'm reminded of probably the worst issue that I ever inked. It was like a huge big deadline. They were very loose pencils. I look back at it and I'm like, that was not a good outing for me. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, is this worse than that? And I think it is.
Explain what the problem is with the panel.
The action lines that are coming out of this explosion are just wobbly. They're not.
Yeah.
There is no feeling of confidence in the lines. They feel very amateurish. They feel like somebody who doesn't know what they're doing with the tools. Even if you do a mediocre job with this stuff, those lines should look like they were drawn with confidence. And
right.
These do not in any way, shape, or form. Yeah, there's all sorts of stuff, but that particular panel just jumped out at me as like, wow, that looks like amateur hour.
Oh yeah, the whole book does. It just looks awful. I'm looking at other stuff in my notes. I say it's unclear how Una feels about the people of Earth. Like, she's sort of like, I'm going to support Captain Marvel in whatever he does, but she doesn't know that he's lying about the fact that he doesn't want to kill the people of Earth. So, it's a little unclear how she feels about it, how she feels about this town being killed off. I say at the end of my notes, sort of zany twist issue, destroying animatronic town, looks awful, pretty terrible. What did Q even want? What did Quasimodo even want? I say at the end of my notes. Okay. So are we done with this issue?
I think so. I could go into like, I think I could explain a little bit better what Quasimodo wants, but it doesn't matter. It's not worth the time and energy it would take to describe it. So I tell you what, I will let you take the Marvel superheroes when we get to that, and I will go ahead and do Submariner here.
Okay. Yeah, we apologize to our listeners that we don't generally like to do 2 weak issues in a row, and Captain Marvel and Submariner are 2 of their weakest books. But, as we always say, we have fun and we poke fun. And we hope that you have just as much fun listening, whether we're having fun or poking fun. I mean, this Submariner is not terrible. Let's go ahead and discuss it. I'll have no more preamble.
All right. So we've got a cover with a grayscale photo background once again here. We've gotten this a few times in the last few months in Marvel Comics. This one, it looks like a parade going down the canyons of New York as Submariner in full color inked art flies up into the sky in the foreground.
Yes. So go ahead and Google, you out there in podcast land, and Steve, go ahead and Google Tales to Astonish number 7.
Are you sure this is what I'm supposed to be looking at? I don't see anything here that seems to have.
So they brought back Tales to Astonish as a reprint book in the late 70s or early 80s where they were reprinting old Submariners. And so
okay.
It's fascinating. They reprinted this issue, but they were like, oh, that photo is dated now. I think this was already a not entirely modern photo when it originally ran. And it certainly was in black and white, which the rest of the book was in color. But they decided to replace the background with a full color, very 1980 or so New York City street. They later thought better of this cover, but I like this cover a lot. I like it with the black and white. I don't like the 1980 version. I think that just looks gritty and grimy and country to New York, drop dead era. But right. I like the original cover here with the black and white city behind Submariner.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the Bronx is burning.
Yes,
exactly. Well, also, there's not a political parade going on in the background. That's the whole point of the photo background that we
Yes.
get in the current issue is there's a presidential campaign going on. And so that's supposed to look like a political parade of some sort. And here it's just a day in 1979 New York, complete with what looks like a big pit where a building used to be.
Yeah.
Wow, that is strange. Okay, interesting. Anyway, Prince Namor the Submariner #7. I've described the photo cover. Inside, for president, the man called Destiny. Now, this is an uncomfortable book for me to read. For those of you who've been listening to this podcast in chronological order, you know where Matt and I stand generally with various things about politics. And this issue very much reminds me of certain things in current politics. And I'm not going to get into it too much, but you'll be able to intuit what I mean from my perspective. So, for president, the man called Destiny, another charismatic chance to vote the mighty Marvel ticket. Stan Lee editor, Roy Thomas writer, John Buscema artist, Dan Adkins inker, Herb Cooper letterer, a choice, not an Ecch-O, which is what it says there, which, okay, you could have workshopped that a little bit better.
So a choice, not an Ecch-O must have been some sort of advertising slogan at the time or something like that. I don't know. Or a political slogan. I don't know. But then they've changed it from Ecch-O to Ecch-O, which as in not brand Eck, as in not DC Comics. Anyway, it's bizarre.
Yes. So we start off with a political candidate who, do we get his name? Yes, who's named Paul Destine, Destine. I guess it could be Destiny, but I think it's Destine. And he refers to himself as the man of destiny in his political speech that he's giving, which he seems to be haranguing the people in the street who all are being swept along. And as part of his political speech, he says, whether they masquerade as Democrats or as Republicans, be they of the new left or the so-called far right, you and I know that they all belong to one group. They are all of them traitors. And then everybody in the crowd is yelling, traitors, traitors. They've stolen your heritage, sold your birthright, leaving you with nothing save the hopes built on shifting sands. He's a typical demagogue that would have come across as quite improbable to me if I'd read this back in the day. Comes across as a lot less improbable to me now.
Yeah, it was when I was doing my 37 days of Shakespeare, when I went through Shakespeare's plays, then there kept being all these parallels to what was going on politically as I was going through the plays, including a populist demagogue in Henry VI Part 2 who takes over the country. And it was very uncomfortable to read.
So it turns out that this political speech was all just a nightmare of Submariner, who is still thinking about Destiny and how he needs to confront him. Throughout this issue, by the way, I will point out that as you have brought attention to, Matt, there's a lot more of the panels that have no external borders to them.
Yes.
So anyway.
And what do you think about that?
I find it less remarkable, I think, than you do, but it can work well in situations.
Yeah, I like him a lot.
Yeah. After this nightmare, Submariner gets up and walks around in the Atlantean night, and they are building the new Atlantis. So they're working around the clock, it seems. He goes and sees some of that and then goes to visit Tiger Shark, who is still a prisoner that they've got. Is talking to him by video phone in his cell. Tiger Shark ends up destroying the video phone mechanism. Mm-hmm. We've got something that I think both you and I have talked about having trouble with. On page 5, panel 3, we see a side view of the TV screen showing Submariner, and the face is drawn from the side as well.
Yes, of course.
As though this is a hologram that you turn around and you see it from whatever perspective you're looking at it. So anyway.
Even when I was a kid, that would annoy me. That was a consistent pet peeve of mine, even when I was a little kid, of when you would see someone's face on a screen and it would be as if you were actually seeing the side of their face instead of their flattened face.
Yeah, I think if I remember right, there was an issue of Alpha Flight where John Byrne actually pulled it off correctly, where it looked like it was a flattened face from the front. And I remember jumping out at me as like, oh, wow, this is what it's supposed to look like.
Yeah. Well, Steranko was very good at it. Steranko would always do it correctly on next variation of Shield, which I was always very appreciative of.
Yes. Anyway, Submariner has determined, or has had his people determine, like, where Tiger Shark's sister is. So he figures, well, I need to go let her know that her brother is still alive. He gets to New York City, where she
But
is.
Dorma is like, oh, really? You're going to go visit another woman? Well, I'd better take one of my white people pills and come along with you.
Yes, indeed. This is true. So they get to New York and find out that this campaign for president isn't just a nightmare. It's actually real life. And Submariner destroys one of Paul Destine's political billboards, which is nice. And then he's about to destroy a truck that's driving around with a picture of him on the side and a bullhorn blaring, political slogans from it. And he's about to destroy the car, and then is talked out of it by Dorma. On page 9, where he's setting the truck back down, this is one of those things that I had no problem with as a kid, but as I grow older, I'm just like, you couldn't pick up a car like that. Come on.
Yeah.
But of course, when I was 10, 12, whatever, I'm sure I was just like, oh, that's awesome. So we get more of Paul Destine giving a speech, and then somebody says, hey, do you have a statement for the evening edition? Tell your readers to watch my TV speech this evening. That is all the statement I need. It turns out that he's got his helmet of destiny in a little bucket that he carries around with him. And he doesn't have to be wearing it in order for him to be superpowered and have his superpowered charisma. He just has to have it near him. So he just carries it with him wherever he goes. He's then going to give this national speech and actually gets dressed up looking like a Central American dictator with a sash and all sorts of stuff. So seems a little bit premature to do that when you're about to give your speech that supposedly will get you in charge of everything. But, you might want to hold off on the dictator outfit.
So I should explain that this helmet will later be retconned to be the same as the serpent helmet, the serpent crown. So this is really the first appearance of the serpent crown, even though it's at this point the helmet. What do they call it? The helmet of power. So the Helmet of Power, really the first appearance of the Serpent Crown, which will have an epic storied history in Marvel history.
Well, this is not the first appearance of that helmet. I mean, he's had the helmet in all of his previous appearances.
Oh, okay.
So Namor and Dorma end up barging in on Tiger Shark's sister. Tiger Shark's sister throws herself at Submariner to give him a huge hug, and Dorma does not look happy about this. But Namor, is then just standing there haughtily as he tells her what's going on. And somehow Paul Destine comes up, and it seems that Tiger Shark's sister has been ensorcelled by his eldritch powers here. Mm-hmm. And so bringing him up, she just looks. And I've got to say, John Buscema did a really good job of making her look hypnotized on page 13, panel 1. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Submariner is able to get out of Tiger Shark's sister, whose name is escaping me, that Paul Destine is giving the speech from the NBS offices, I guess across between NBC and CBS. Mm-hmm. So he then goes and finds the offices, breaks his way in, ends up having a big battle with Destiny / Paul Destine in the TV studio. Dorma and Tiger Shark's sister follow along behind, and they're trying to get in to see what they can do about the fight. And a policeman is like, yeah, sure, you're Atlantean royalty. I believe. Oh, wait, you're turning blue. She's like, oh, that also means that I can't breathe very well. But he's like, all right, let them in. Maybe they can stop this fight. They make it in, but don't really have anything to do with the fight at this point. They don't end up having much effect on anything here. But Destiny basically defeats the has been dry too long Submariner and picks him up on the roof of the building and hurls him off into the streets, saying, when hurled by my matchless strength, nothing could survive. It's like, this is still the Submariner. I mean, you've knocked him unconscious and he hasn't been in the water for a while, but I doubt dropping him from the roof of a building is going to kill the guy. But
and indeed it does not.
And indeed it does not. Then Destiny, I guess, just gets way too overconfident. He's like, who needs this helmet? I don't need it. I'm super. I can toss it away and then I can float to the ground. And no, he can't. And he just plummets to the ground and dies.
Which is a bizarre way to end the threat of destiny, which has been hanging over our heads for the last 7 issues or so. Just to have him completely defeat Submariner and then just go like, now I'll jump off a rooftop and not die. No, wait, I will die. And then he falls and splats. I don't know. It kind of works in terms of like, I've ensorcelled the world with this helmet, but now it has driven me, myself mad, and I will die as a result of this madness. That kind of works, but I wish that Submariner hadn't himself just gone splat when this happened, because Submariner has very little to do with this and isn't even there for it to happen. He, I guess, just sort of has to figure out later. But then we see Submariner has not gone splat. He has presumably just done a dead cat bounce on the ground.
Yes. And he says, you saw, fair one, to Dorma, you saw, fair one, what the power-crazed eyes of destiny himself beheld. He could not accept my survival in the face of his onslaught. But when you refused to be defeated by him, and then Submariner says his own twisted mind gave way to madness, and bereft of the helmet, he fell. I guess that's supposedly to give some agency to Submariner over this whole situation, but maybe
just
not.
Barely.
Barely. They're stretching it.
Yes. Let me check my notes. It's interesting that the photo cover is wordless. Marvel's been experimenting more with wordless covers recently, and I think it's nice. Bizarre to have Destiny suddenly running for president. This sort of fits in with the general thing of like, what do the villains actually want? But I guess it sort of fits with Destiny's Man of Destiny vision of himself to turn himself into America's dictator. Okay, yes. But it's,
well, and he makes it clear in his political speeches that not only is he going to be president of the U.S., but that once he takes over, the U.S. is going to conquer all of its enemies. And so he is wanting to rule the world. This is just the first step to ruling the world.
Well, it's interesting that this book is cover dated November 1968, which Roy Thomas obviously knew would have a momentous presidential election here in the United States, although I guess it probably came out a couple months before that.
Well, right during when campaigning would be happening.
So it was a timely book. And indeed, America did elect a truly awful president in 1968. So there you go.
Well, I think he has a complicated legacy. There are many good things that he did as well. Oh, wait. I'm sorry. 68. Nixon. No, that's Nixon. I'm sorry. I was thinking Johnson. No, you're right. Never mind. Never mind.
I hate to break it to you, Steve, but there was something called Watergate. But
sorry, I was thinking Johnson. I had forgotten which election we were talking about. Right. Yes. All right. So, all right. That is it for Submariner.
I say at the end of my notes, gorgeous art, nice topical political satire, bizarre ending. And then I point out there's letters at the end from both Tony Isabella and Richard Pini. Who would go on to create ElfQuest.
Yes. Fantastic. So you get to finish up with a better book here, The Black Knight. Surprisingly, it would seem that this should just be some sort of a filler that they just are dropping on us here in the Marvel Superheroes Presents series, but it turns out nicely.
Well, especially because we have seen Howard Purcell before. We saw him show up in a couple issues of Nick Fury Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. before Steranko and did not coat himself in glory. Was not particularly great, but now, I think he was sandwiched in those issues. I think there might have been like Kirby layouts and then Purcell finished pencils and then someone else coming out as inker. But here we get Marvel Superheroes Presents The Black Knight. You again have a wordless cover. It doesn't say anything about the issue, and you just have the Black Knight now with an ebony sword that he's never had before, being besieged by visions that he is attacking, including, I guess this is going to turn out to be Mordred and various sort of demonic figures. It's a shockingly good cover. And then we get to the inside and it says, Stan Lee proudly presents a long-awaited landmark by Roy Thomas writer and Howard Purcell artist, inking by Dan Atkins and company, lettering by Sam Rosen. So we've got Purcell now doing full pencils and inked by the great Dan Atkins and company. So presumably some other inkers had to help out. And it looks really nice. I'm surprised that I have seen Howard Purcell before because I didn't notice him being good before, but he's very good in this issue.
Do you think that cover is Howard Purcell? Because it looks like John Buscema to me.
I think it's Howard Purcell, but I don't know. Of course, this is Roy Thomas. Roy Thomas, I think, created the Black Knight, but when he created the Black Knight, he failed to do the thing he normally does, which he is finally going to go back and do in this issue, which is tie in a modern day Marvel hero to a Golden Age Marvel hero, which is one of his favorite things to do. And in fact, there was an original Golden Age Marvel Black Knight, some really nice comics that Marvel put out in, I guess, the early 50s about the Black Knight back in medieval Arthurian times. I guess medieval times and Arthurian times, it depends on the story, but sometimes those are the same and sometimes those are different. Sometimes the Arthurian stories go back more to late Roman times, but they always have castles in them, which they didn't have back then. So it's always a little confusing. We have on the splash page the medieval Black Knight looming over the modern Black Knight. So we jump into the story. Dane Whitman decides to finally sell his ancestral castle over in England, but he's first just going to take a normal tour with the tour group of it. But then he is drawn to a portrait. He says, wait, now I know that face. He could be my twin, but how? And those eyes staring right through me into my very soul. And then he realizes that he knows where a secret passage is, falls down through the secret passage and finds a dead skeleton with a sword sticking out of it. Then opens up, and yes, as a kid, I always love to make jokes about this. He has a brazier, Brazier. When we were kids, Dairy Queen tried to rebrand itself as sort of a flame grilled burger place, and they would always go like, "Oh, this is a special Dairy Queen. This is a brazier Dairy Queen," but it's really brazier. But as kids, we would always pretend we didn't know the difference between a brazier and a brazier. Anyway, he lights up a brazier. His ancestor was his ancestor's name, Sir Percy, heir of the House of Scandia, rises out of the brazier and says, I am Sir Percy of Scandia, he whom Merlin the Magnificent did once dub the Black Knight, and I am every man, but most of all, Dane Whitman, I am you. He tells him a whole story about working for Merlin, going up against Mordred, who, of course, King Arthur's bastard son, I guess.
I think incestuous bastard son, if I'm not mistaken.
All right. So then Mordred stabs Black Knight in the back and kills him. He is then dying. Somehow Merlin makes it back here. Merlin gets hold of the body, and Merlin then goes ahead and casts a spell so that the light of Jan Brazier is extinguished, even as your life was ultimately snuffed out. But when the spirit of Mordred the Evil once more stalks the land, you shall live again through another. And he leaves behind an ebony blade. So then we cut to Dane Whitman, who is like, well, okay, fine. I actually have been masquerading around as a Black Knight and being a hero. I guess I can go ahead and take your ebony blade and deal with Mordred if Mordred's back around. Briefly, a giant monster emerges, which is a very nice looking design, very cool looking design.
Actually feels very Dan Atkins.
Yes, Dan Atkins doing the inks. He fights it for a while. Suddenly, we cut to a seemingly entirely different story. I wondered if the issue would just end because, you know, I knew these Marvel superheroes books have reprints in the back. I'm like, oh, is this story over? And now we're going to cut to reprints. You know, he said he would defeat Mordred and he defeated Mordred's monster. But no, the story then sort of starts up again from scratch. He goes ahead and goes home and decides, yes, okay, I will keep alive the dream of Sir Percy and fight Mordred in modern times. Then we cut to a knife thrower named LeSabre, who was a top knife thrower, and he would chain beautiful girls up to a spinning disc and he would throw knives at them and then, whoops, threw a knife into the girl and killed her. That turns out ruins your career if you're a knife thrower. Mordred then appears to him. This is sort of similar to the cover where Mordred's face and a bunch of demonic spirits appear, not to Dane Whitman as they seem to be doing on the cover, but to this guy LeSabre. Mordred goes ahead and turns him into an evil knight type person. Much may be done by the one whom the world once called LeSabre. And now, Earthbound One, do you believe that Mordred can do what he threatens or which he promises? And then gives him a flying gargoyle, brings a gargoyle to life, has him flying around on a giant stone flying gargoyle, which is kind of awesome. Dane Whitman finds out about this, I guess, or does he? Or is it just coincidence? He decides to go ahead and fly out into the night sky on his own flying horse, which we've seen before.
And I will point out that, you know, he's still in England at this point, right? And last time we saw him and his horse was in the US. And so he's saying, good old Aragorn couldn't let you languish back in the States, though getting a winged horse through customs wasn't easy. Like, oh, The pre 9/11 days, what you could get through, what you could get through airport security, like your winged horse.
Yes. So then he now has his winged horse. He is flying around. The bad guy, LeSabre, is on a flying gargoyle, and they get to have a little aerial fight, which is pretty cool. And they end up over the Tower Bridge in London. They are whacking away at each other. And then basically Black Knight just knocks him off and then does fly down, does rescue him before he goes splat. Lots of potential splatting in these issues. And suddenly he changes. He changes back into a normal dude. My foe is changing into more normal clothing. I'll leave him here to awaken in the throes of regret, for I can sense he was but a pawn in the grasping hand of Mordred. He realized that he was carrying, how does this work? He was carrying a dagger, and when he knocked him down, the dagger went flying, and Dane Whitman realizes if he could find the dagger, he could defeat Mordred, but he can't.
That whoever carries the ebony blade cannot be killed except by a weapon made of the same meteor, the same black meteor that the sword was made of, and that these daggers that Mordred had that he used to defeat the original Black Knight have been delivered into the hands of LeSabre. And so as long as these ebony blade daggers are out there, then the Black Knight is vulnerable. And so that's what the story is with this dagger.
Yes, and he's looking for it, and he can't find it. And then that's the issue. Black Knight flies off into the night, waving his ebony blade. The ebony blade will be a part of the Black Knight mythos from this point on, and I think it's very good. I think the ebony blade is a good addition to the character. People find the smashed gargoyle and try to figure out what the heck went on, but they don't know. Mordred is still vowing revenge wherever he is. They who gave my spirit the power to walk once more amongst men. What do you want, dread sires? And they go, is this how you reward our gift of life, which is not life, Mordred? And so they're not happy with him, but he promises he'll do a better job next time. And that is the end of the issue. And then we've got a whole bunch of reprints of Golden Age books, which of course I'm sure made Roy very happy. But of course, in this issue, he has done what he always does. He has found a way to tie in a Golden Age hero into a Modern Age hero, into a Silver Age hero, I guess. And I think it works well. I think it's good. I think it's clever to attach the Arthurian Black Knight to the modern Black Knight. So I should point out that this issue did not launch the Black Knight into his own series. Much like the Medusa issue, it proved to be a one-off. They decided that if this was a backdoor pilot, that then it was an unsuccessful backdoor pilot. They decided that Dane could not support his own book. But I think that maybe he could have. Maybe he could have done a half book if they still had half books. But I think it could have worked. And then eventually there was a real follow-up to this issue in an issue of Doctor Strange as a kid, which is one of my all-time favorite comics, Doctor Strange number 68. Well, great writing by Roger Stern and amazing art by Paul Smith and Terry Austin. It's just a gorgeous issue. But once again, it involves Dane Whitman sort of being crazed and having to go to his castle and going to the Brazier of Truth and getting possessed.
Brazier. It's Brazier.
The Brazier of Truth and getting possessed by Sir Percy, and then having his ebony blade sort of purged of its ghosts by Doctor Strange. If for nothing else than setting up that issue, I'm a fan of this issue. Steve, what do you think of this issue?
Yeah, I was surprisingly happy with it. You know, the art is quite good. You know, I was like, tying this in with the medieval Black Knight, that just seems, you know, meh. But it actually is done well. Mm-hmm. It's a fun little issue. And I'm always a sucker for Arthurian legends. Now, didn't we, either you or I, as a kid, have some reprint book that had a Black Knight story in it? Like a Sir Percy Black Knight story? I have a memory of one of us having a copy of a reprint issue that had that in it. And so I'm wondering how much Sir Percy is supposed to be related to Percival or Parsifal, or however you pronounce them in various permutations, and whether he's supposed to be that character or not, or whether he's just some other character named Sir Percy.
Yeah, I assumed he was not supposed to be the Parsifal of Norse. Well, I guess Parsifal was a Norse legend, and then Percival was an Arthurian legend. I don't know.
No, Parsifal was just the German telling of the story of the same character, basically.
Oh, of the English knight Percival. I see.
Well, except I don't know. I think it was basically the same character, but I don't know if Parzival actually involved any Arthurian elements or not. But it's basically the same character, whether or not he's part. I don't know. I don't remember. I tried to do some looking up of it. I know I read Parzival back in college at one point, and that was many years ago.
Okay. Just checking my notes on this issue, I say, nice silent cover. Purcell was a big cover artist at DC, did the cover for Green Lantern #1 back in 1940. And then I say, he finds Brazier, heh heh.
Okay. Yeah. So a surprisingly nice little story. You know, you say, could he support his own book? He would have to have some sort of a supporting cast, which they don't really do anything about right here.
No.
So, you know, maybe if they'd given him somewhat of a supporting cast, maybe he would have had more of a chance of taking over his own book. One last thing I want to say is that there are, you know, certain times in here when the people of England are, of course, saying stereotypically English stuff, you know, referring to someone as gov, like short for governor. And, right. You know, all sorts of stuff like that. But one thing they get wrong is on the final page, panel 3, the police officer says, "We'll see soon enough, gov, as soon as I turn my flash on it," referring to their flashlight. It's like, it's torch. Nope. It's torch. Yes. You throw in governor, but you don't get torch right. That's, yes. Anyway, that's it. Yeah, fun little issue.
Yep. I agree.
All right.
Okay. Well, I think this was a quick episode. There are 14 books that were released in November, so we're breaking them up 5, 4, and 5. So this is just a 4-book episode. So nice quick episode of Marvel Reread Club.
Yes, indeed. And we will be back in a week with the last third of the books of this month. And then I guess next we'll be doing the rest of the annuals from this year, correct?
Yes, 2 big money momentous annuals.
Yes, indeed. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for listening. Once again, we do have a Patreon, and we do now have at least a little bit of bonus content. If you join our Patreon, you can get there at patreon.marvelrereadclub.com. And there was a little while there when I think there was something wrong with that domain that I've been reading off. But if so, I've fixed it at this point. So if at some point you try to follow that, you're like, I can't even get there, it's been fixed. So we've got that. As always, please, if you haven't done so yet, give us a rating and or a review on your podcast platform of choice. And if you know other people who are fans of old Marvel comics or who might become fans of old Marvel comics, let them know about this podcast if you enjoy it. Maybe they will as well.
Yes, I think the best way to become a fan of Marvel Comics is to listen to 160 hours of Marvel Reread Club. And next thing you know, you're going to be a fan.
Yes. If you make it through that far, you probably are at that point. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. We always appreciate it. And do you have anything else to say, Matt?
Nope. I think I'm all good.
All right. Well, take care and stay safe out there.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed it, we now have a Patreon where you can show your appreciation. If you've got a few bucks, head over to patreon.marvelrereadclub.com to support us. Also, you can still rate and review us at your podcatcher of choice, and that would be greatly appreciated as well. You can find us online at marvelrereadclub.com, as well as Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, and Threads. See you next time.